Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch, previously known as the Small Church Podcast. I'm Tony Marr, and with me is my friend Robert Kell.
Hey everyone, we're glad you're here. The Pulpit and Porch is where we kick back, put up our feet, and talk about real life stuff of ministry, faith, community, and maybe a little sports and pop culture.
Yeah, if you're expecting a perfectly polished sermon, you're probably in the wrong place.
We're more about those honest heart-to-heart conversations, like the ones you'd have on the front porch with friends. Sometimes we stay on track, and sometimes we take the scenic route.
That's half the fun, isn't it? Here we tackle the highs, the lows, and the in-betweens of church and of life. Every now and then, we'll welcome a few friends to the front porch and share stories and ideas that might just change the way that you see things.
So whether you're a pastor, a church leader, or just someone who loves the church, pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and let's dive in. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. We've got a seat waiting for you.
Well, good morning and welcome into the Pulpit and Porch. We are doing things a little bit differently today. That for the first time in a long time, Robert, you're not sitting across the studio from me.
I am not. I think it was probably back in October when the flood and everything first happened. I did a episode or two on the road out trying to do some ministry and work as well while we're doing this. But today's a little bit different. Today is weather related still, but most of the world hasn't been to your house, so your driveway is a little steep, and I don't have four-wheel drive. So
can you even call it a driveway? It's more like a road.
It is. I told Melissa today because she still hasn't been out there. I was like, hey, we're recording online, and I was like, and I said, his road's kind of rough, and she was like, oh, I didn't know that, and I was like, well, it's at least a quarter mile long, and I was like,
yeah, it's almost exactly a quarter mile, and
a
big portion of it is uphill. And
pretty severely uphill. Yeah. And like, I drive minivans. And so sometimes, especially the older van I drive all the time, when the dogs get out in front of me and I have to stop, it's a little hard to kind of traction it and get it going again sometimes.
So yesterday, woke up and I just told you the story off air, but now I'll tell it to all of our listeners who are anxiously wanting to know about the personal lives of Robert and Tony.
Robert and Tony.
Woke up and our 13 acres that we have here, including our mountainous mini road that we're completely covered in snow. I bet you we had 2.5 inches of snow. And so I thought, that's it. We're done. It's Armageddon. We're done, because for me, snow is that life shuts down. I'm like, nope, this is my biggest nightmare when this happens. And so waited a couple of hours to get the day started. And my wife is braver than me. And she said, I'm going out. I'm going to see what's going on. She wasn't seeing anything on the socials. And for those of you that are older than us, that is social media, Facebook and Instagram and all those things. So she checked the socials and there was nothing. And so she said, I'm going for it. And the most treacherous part is the initial descent. Once you can get down to our pond and our barn, you're typically pretty good. But that initial descent can be treacherous. I've slid my truck into the guardrail. We have a guardrail that gives a little bit of a mental picture of what we're experiencing here. And I've slid my truck into the guardrail a couple of times going down that hill. And so I was a little worried, but I was like, hey, if you want to be the guinea pig and risk your life in your car, go for it. And I'll watch from the warmth of our living room. And so she went and did it. And I watched her slide a couple times and was like, oh, Jesus, be with her. I did say a prayer. I'm an affectionate, caring husband. And so I said a prayer for her as I
There's some
watched
question
her
to that based
down
on
the road. And she got to the bottom safely and she got out and she sent me some pictures of the main road that we live on. That is. I thought you were going to
say she sent you some pictures of her fishtailing. And well, that might have been why she was sliding.
And she said, man, the road is bad. And then she got to the end of our road, which is about a mile and a quarter, and turned on to the main state highway there that leads to our house. And she sent me more pictures and said, there's absolutely nothing, not a drop. And the whole rest of her drive into Johnson City and onto Bristol, not a drop. And so I waited about another hour before I got up the courage to conquer it in my heavy duty 4-wheel drive pickup truck that's been lifted and has off-road tires on it. And her Kia, made it down, and I was still scared to try. I waited another hour. And so I grabbed my son and I said, we're going for it. And so we hopped in and went down. No problem. Didn't slide anything. But the main road that we live on, again, was completely covered, hadn't been salted or scraped or anything. But a mile from our house, once you turn out, it was like summer in Arizona. I mean, there was nothing there for the rest of the drive. So we saw a weather blip right on this 13 acres in Jonesboro, Tennessee, that we got a blizzard dumped on us yesterday. And the rest of the world around us did not receive anything at all. And then today, most of the Tri-Cities is covered in snow, and we're perfectly fine here in good old Jonesboro, Tennessee's oldest town.
Yeah, it's our roads are kind of white. I mean, not anything bad. I mean, Melissa and Landon are both out right now, and I'll be out here shortly, and yeah, just normal life over here. But this weekend's gonna be fun. Tony's
No,
least
it's not going
favorite.
to be fun at all. Don't even use that word.
I love it so much.
Do you
I
really?
love it.
Do you
Yes, I
really
love
love it?
snow. I love snow so much.
Man, I don't know
Hey,
what's
I'll
wrong
say
with you
this.
people.
I love snow when I have a job. And so this is one of the reasons like I'm very indifferent about it because what I'm about to say, I love snow when I have a job that I don't have to worry about getting out and going. I don't like making decisions on Sundays, but like when I was at the YMCA or when I was in some of these different things, I like I hate having to get out and risk my life to do that. And so it's probably why I err on the side of, hey, we've got two other campuses you can watch their live stream, or we teach kind of the same thing. And although our lead pastor was at our campus and another campus, and he said, "Man, you all went totally different directions with the exact same topic this
Hmm.
past week." And so, that's not a bad thing. That's what I love about being autonomous a little bit inside of the network. But yeah, so I tend to err on. But man, I don't know. I love snow days. I love
I
hanging
do a
out,
lot
being
with
around.
personality and temperament assessments. In
Yeah.
fact, we've talked about doing a mini series here on the Pulpit and Porch where we talk about some of the various temperament and personality assessments that are out there and pros and cons and what we like and don't like about them, and kind of giving a book review on those things. And I'm a big fan of those. I've done a lot of those. I'm certified and trained in a couple of those, even created our own temperament and personality system that we call TAPS, which is temperament and personality systems. There you
There
go,
you
right
go.
there. And in everything that I do, my personality is I crave freedom, creative
Mm.
freedom. I don't like to be pinned down. And so I think that's one of the big reasons why I hate snow, because I hate the feeling of I'm trapped. I'm trapped here. We live up on this hill and this mountain, and getting down sometimes you're talking hours of scraping and all of that. And then our main, we're out in the country. And so a lot of times they don't get to it and scraping it. And I hate that feeling of I'm trapped. If there's an issue, if there's an emergency, I have kids who live in Nashville. I have kids who live in Chattanooga. I have kids who live in Knoxville area. If there's an emergency, I can't get to them. And it seriously gives me anxiety. I have to go take an anxiety pill because I hate the feeling of I am trapped here, even though we have a wonderful house and anything you could want to do, we can do here in our house pretty much. And we've got great property for going out and sledding and all that. I don't like it at all. And we have teenage drivers. And so the roads being treacherous and all of that. And we've experienced 2 really bad wrecks with teenagers and just,
Mm.
man, I can't stand it. So I'm already gearing up emotionally, mentally, physically for the incoming doom that is about to hit us this weekend.
And it's Northeast Tennessee, so it could project 15 inches and then go around us and it be sunny and 75, as I think Keith
Please,
Urban says.
please, Jesus.
So yeah, yeah,
You went Keith Urban. See, for
I
me, I go
did.
Reliant K.
Yeah, I don't, and it might
Because
not
I'm
even
more
be Keith
Christian
Urban. It
than
might
you.
be. It might be Kenny. You are. You're way more. It
Sunny
might be
with a
Kenny Chesney.
high of 75, since you took
Um,
my heavy heart and made
yeah.
it light. You don't remember that one?
No, well, no, I wasn't. I don't know. I listened to a ton of Reliant K. I probably knew a couple of their like main like top five songs, but
Matt Thiessen's a great songwriter.
oh, yeah, no. It's like they've done a great job. They're fantastic, but yeah, um, not, yeah, just not my
You
style of
got
music
nothing. You
as
got
much.
nothing here.
I got nothing. I don't know what else to say.
All
Not my
right.
jam.
So today's episode is going to be different from anything I think that we've done here on the Pulpit and Porch, even
We
the Small
promised
Church
different in
podcast.
2025.
We did, and we are now sitting heavily in 2025. This is our first episode that we've recorded in 2025. It will be our third episode airing in 2025, but first one that we've sat down together. And it's not a good start to the year that we're apart because of snow. Man, is that an omen or something? I don't know. Maybe you're like, man, I love this. I'm sitting here in my own house. Are you wearing pants? That's the question that I want to. Are you wearing
Yes, I
pants?
mean I'm in
Okay.
shorts, but
I'm not. I'm
um,
not. I'm underwear because you can't see me.
I'm in shorts, but yes, I have pants on.
We're doing something
Well, of
different
course you
today.
did.
We're doing something different today that really I'm going to be you started with the Pulpit and Porch by being a guest.
I
Some
did.
year and a half ago you were a guest on the show, and today
Actually,
it's
this April May will be 2 years.
2 years. Wow.
Yeah,
And then
we're
how
getting
much time
close.
was there? I don't remember. I'm sorry. How much time was there from when you were a guest to where you came on as a host of the show?
In August, so about 3 months.
Okay.
I knew right as I was transitioning back into the church more full-time vocationally, and stuff, then I moved into this as well. So
Hey,
yeah,
so
that's been a year and a half now.
So I was just about to do something, and then I realized that we're not a video show. We're audio only. So what I was about to do doesn't make any sense at all. But one of my favorite shows to listen to, or it's a radio show and a podcast, I guess technically, is the Dan Patrick Show. It's a sports
Good
show.
old
We've talked
Dan.
about it a lot. And whenever he has someone on his show that is remote, like you are, he asks them to give them a tour of his office. And so I'm seeing behind you there, you have some pictures off to the side, and then directly behind you, I'm guessing that is a panoramic of the Alabama Crimson Tide football stadium.
It is the actual national championship game from 2016 where we beat Clemson 45-40. Attendance was 75,765.
Where was that held?
I don't remember. University of Phoenix Stadium.
Okay. Where the Cardinals play.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, fun story about that. I was working at an organization, and I was, I think, the only Alabama fan in the entire place. And somebody was wanting that organization to start doing panoramics, and they sent a demo piece in. And I was in the CEO's office one day, dropping some stuff off, and his assistant said, I was like, oh, cool, that's fun. I was like, I'm a Bama fan. And I was leaving a month or so later, was leaving that organization, and just it was a part-time kind of transition thing. I was still running my own business, and I was doing a little bit of part-time. And she came to my office with that and said, hey, thanks for all you've done, and gave it to me. And so that was a pretty cool thing. And so absolutely awesome. I love it. And so, yeah, but right now, I lost one of our dogs, but I've got our 140-pound Malamute laying on the floor beside me. I've got our
That's more than several
18-pound
of my
cat.
kids weigh.
Do what now? Oh,
That's more
yeah,
than several
yeah,
of my
several of
kids
your
weigh
kids. It is, it is.
combined.
Um, I've got our little neighborhood cat that's adopted us sitting on the couch here beside me. The crazy lab is was on the couch and took off somewhere else, and I've got the Passion Conference streaming off to the TV here. So there you go.
You are
I guess
streaming
I
the
could.
Passion Conference while you're recording a podcast.
Yeah, I just
Man, you're a
it's
multitasker.
well, I'm not watching it. I mean, I'm not listening to it. They're singing now. It's Christian Stanfield and it looks like Brooke Lidgetwood up there, and Um, I think Crowder's coming back out in a little bit. He said he was last night, and I think Sadie's speaking today. So it's been really good. Been very challenging for me. Um, I love Passion Conference. Have for a lot of years. I've been to several. It's been a long time since I've been, but yeah, Louis was great last night. I love Jackie Hill Perry. She spoke yesterday morning. Ben Stewart, oh my goodness, he's so good. Um, I think I was telling you before I was writing my sermon, working on my sermon for Sunday, and just a few thoughts and stuff, and typing some things in, working through the text, and I was listening to him speak, and I texted the other campus pastors, and I was like, you ever been writing your sermon, and then you listen to somebody else preach that sermon better than you do? And literally, Ben was preaching the sermon I was writing, and I'm going, well, I guess I know what I'm doing this Sunday, and so I'm just going to steal Ben's sermon. If I could, I would just steal Ben and let him preach it again. But I
Give him
can't
a
do that.
call.
So,
He may be available.
hey, you're driving through, Ben. You're in Atlanta right now. You're heading back to DC. Just hang out a couple of
Swing right
days in
in.
Irwin.
There
Come
you
on.
go. Irwin's a great place to visit.
It is. It is really a cool town. I'm excited to see the progress that continues to happen, and we'll hopefully here over the next 6 8 months see a lot more things happen, and by this time next year, hopefully be a whole new place with a lot of good renovations and
Is the Hanging
rebuilds and
Elephant
stuff like
gift
that.
shop still open?
I don't think no.
Oh, that's too bad.
No, that
One
kind
of
of
the
stuff.
finest
It's a
moments in Irwin history.
well, it's so funny. We've talked about this before, so I'm not gonna hit that. You know, it's so funny, like it just how that story goes and what really happened versus what is apparent, appeared to happen. But Irwin definitely still gets the blame for all of that, even though it really happened in Kingsport and and a whole lot of other stuff there. So anyway, so we were talking, we're apart, and we're doing this a little bit different today. I've been on the show as a full host almost a year and a half, and or I guess yeah, something like that. And then we're doing something different today, where I'm almost going back to a guest role.
Yeah, because of what we're talking about today and our various roles, that I don't have a lot of personal experience over the last year in this. And so you live it every single day. And so today will be more of me kind of interviewing you about some things.
Yeah,
We've spent our last 2 weeks looking back on 2024 from the perspective of what were our favorite moments. What it was more of a fun, personal, introspective episode that turned into 2 episodes. This week, this is an episode that we've planned out and been talking about doing for about 6 weeks now, and we just keep not getting to it. Where what we're wanting to do is reflect on the year in ministry of 2024. And I know that when this airs, we're going to be almost done with the month of January, about 3 weeks into January. But it's never too late to try to learn lessons and learn things about ourselves and where the Lord is taking us. And so what we want to do today is I'm going to spend some time talking with you about what your last year has been like, lessons that you have learned, and then also things that you can learn for the upcoming year based off of patterns and themes and things that maybe you've seen out of the last year. And what we're wanting to do for our listeners out there is make this kind of more of a interactive episode, that there are going to be some questions that I asked to Robert that I'm also asking to you. And we're going to give you some things, that some techniques, maybe some different little anecdotes that you can use, maybe some reflective questions that you can ask yourself, some journal prompts, to take you through some things that maybe can give you some insight and guidance for 2024. Some things that we used to do quite frequently with Higher Ministries, which is an organization that you and I both work with, that is the primary host and sponsor of the Pulpit and Porch podcast. One of the things we used to do is these retreats that we called life mapping retreats. And we would have pastors come in from all over the country. We would only bring in one at a time for our life mapping retreats, and they would come spend 5 days with us. We would lock them away in a cabin on the lake, and we would go and spend 5-6 hours with them. And we would start off each day 5-6 hours with them. And it was very intense, very personal. And we would start off by just asking them, let's go back to your earliest memories. And we would have these big sheets of butcher paper that we would just start writing in magic marker. List any memory. Let's start anything. Let's just go. Start from your earliest memories, good memories, bad memories, insignificant memories, anything that you can think of at all. Let's just write them down, bullet point them down. And then at the end of the first day, we'd spend, 4, 5, 6 hours writing all of these thoughts. And we'd go through 15, 20 sheets of those, big, huge, massive Post-it notes that would be strung all over the walls of the living room of this cabin. And then when we'd leave for the day, we'd say, over the course of the evening, we want you to go through and try your best to put them in chronological order. And then we'd come back the next day and we'd look at all of these things and we'd say, okay, now let's go and let's put a plus by positive things and negative by negative things and all this. And we'd look for patterns and themes throughout the sheets of paper that were all around the room. And it was really kind of surreal for the people that would go through this to see their whole life written out on the walls of this cabin in the mountains. And then as they begin to look at themes over the course of several days, what are themes? What are pivotal moments, turning points in your life? What are the different themes and ideas that we can see flowing through that? What are ways that you can see by looking at the patterns that we see throughout the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life, how we can see the way as God has worked in the past, that will these patterns continue in the future? And that's kind of what we want to do today, but not in going all the way back to your earliest memories, but just in the last year. That what are things that you have seen in the last year, and how can we identify maybe some patterns and themes out of those that can give us some idea for maybe where things are headed for you in the future. So I want to start off with that, just asking you, Robert, and if you're one of our listeners out there listening, just asking you as well, what's something surprising or impactful that you've learned in this past year?
Um,
And that's all the time that we
Surprising.
have for today on this.
Yeah. No, I mean, surprising or impactful. I, I think that, I think one of the things that, um, my DNA, my character, is typically been relatively short fused. And it's not something I'm proud of, not something that I love, but it's something I know I need to grow in, and I still do. And I heard a leader say one time, believe the best, don't assume the worst. I'm typically an assume the worst person. If you didn't show up on time for something, it's because you don't respect me, you don't respect the other people in the room. It's not because you had a flat tire or because the world was coming to an end for you or something really bad happened. It was because you're just disrespectful, rude, and type of thing. And again, I'm talking 25, almost 30-year leadership journey. That was a very early on phase for me, and I've grown in that. Had a pretty rough leadership situation this year. One that was really, really rough, and another opportunity to grow inside of some leadership things inside of the church that was just a real bump, and it's just a rub. It wasn't anything crazy. And I think one of the things that for me, as I look back, um, and I just went blank. I've got surprised. What was the other word? Something that surprised or no,
Impactful, something that was
impactful.
impactful for you.
Um, I think something that maybe surprised me is that sometimes you look back and you don't like. I don't feel like that I have grown in an area, and you get on the other side of something and you go, "Oh wow." the Father, the Spirit has been really working. There's some things, and other steps I have to take as well. I understand that my responsibility in this space, but I also know that the Lord working and doing what is being done. And so it was almost one of those times I went back and it was this surprising and impactful thing for me that able to kind of reflect inside of those two situations and see where it's got me to right now. Um, See how it allowed me to grow and gain some respect of some other leaders and individuals. And then also it's really set up, I think, a better year this year because of again, not perfect, but growth in those situations. So
And I think what you just expressed there is exactly why it's important to do these kind of practices. Because when we
yeah.
only live in the now, we tend to reflect and skew towards the negative. And so if you're listening there and you haven't taken time to reflect on your past year yet, then for some of you, maybe you're sitting there thinking attendance is lower than it was this time last year. We've lost some families. We've lost some staff. Giving is down. We're not doing as well as we thought. I just had a conversation this past week that was difficult, and man, this has been a miserable year. I'm failing in everything that I do, and there's nothing but failure in the future. But when we take the time to really reflect back and see that there were wins along the way, there were impactful moments, there were surprisingly positive moments along the way, that it helps us to see, no, there was good that came out of this last year. There were really great things that came out of this last year. There were huge victories that came out of this last year. And maybe if we focus on those and what happened in those, what was the turning point or catalyst behind those things, then maybe we look at doing those things going into the future and we can see more of those and not just focus on the fact that attendance is down, giving is down, negative emails are up, taking the time to reflect on the positive. We've talked about this before. I had in one of my earliest internships that I did, someone told me that I was doing an internship for to start a keep going file in my office, wherever I am, to have a file folder that is all of the positive things that I get from people, a positive card, an encouraging note, a uplifting email, print those out and store them away. And when I'm having a bad day, when I've gotten a negative, nasty phone call or email, or just had a meeting that didn't go well with someone, and I'm feeling like I'm a total failure and I just need to submit my resignation and be done with this, pull out that file and sit and read all of the things, all of the ways that the Lord has used you to impact people's lives, and to make have a positive influence on the kingdom of God and in the world that we live in. And it's very helpful and beneficial. And that's kind of what we're wanting to do today for some of you in a digital podcast way. So, Robert, what would you say was one win from this past year that you're exceptionally thankful for?
Yeah, I don't know, and again, this is kind of tough. I mean, I know you sent some questions, and so I'm trying to make sure I don't jump ahead or do anything. But I, I'm not in. I think I said this. I think last week, and so this is kind of one of those, or maybe I'm gonna say last week in one of the last podcasts or something like that. I'm not an ungrateful person. Like I'm actually typically opposite of that, and people can maybe even um, perceive it to be like over the top at times. But I'm genuinely grateful for people when things are done and people are apart. Um, a few Sundays ago at Christmas, I mean, I guess it's getting to be like a month or so ago now, even from when we're recording this. But you did our Advent talk, and one, I was just crazy grateful. Two, as people started to ask, and I was just like, man, who was that? And you did an unbelievable job. I mean, if anybody listening needs someone to do an Advent talk, call Tony. It's great. But
I'm available 12 months from now to do your Advent talk.
Not nothing else. I mean, don't bring him into anything else.
That's
Just
all I'm good for.
that
That's
one
it.
3.5 minute Advent talk is what
That's all I
he's
got.
money. Uh, but I just remember going, man, I'm just incredibly grateful to have you up there, to have you as a part of my life, to have my, that like the impact that made. And so like there's things, but what I tend to do is I tend to lose sight of the things I should be grateful for. And so even as we're recording this yesterday, I was sitting with a friend of mine, 20 some years we've known each other, and just watching his fam I say little family, I mean his wife, two kids, and his kids are older and they're now married and kids and all these things. And I just told him, I just said, man, I so loved and I'm incredibly grateful for a long time friendship. I'm incredibly grateful for just faithful ministry. And I just loved seeing your family. Cause I mean, I knew his kids when they were, 8, 7. I mean, and now here they are, much older, very different phase of life. And, had at least one of his kids as I was their youth pastor. And so, those are things that I look at and kind of go, man, I'm not very good at being grateful, but I'm thankful that God's kind of revealed that, and I'm getting a chance to be really grateful in the small things. And starting 2025 that way has been challenging but impactful in my life.
So ministry is full of challenges. Can you
Yeah.
think of a specific challenge that you've had in the last year that you learned a valuable lesson from it?
Um, yeah, I mean, like we actually have paid staff. Even as small of a church as we are, because we're part of a network, we have a couple of paid staff, and I, it's one of those things. Like I'm a pastor at heart, and so even when I was bivocational, I knew what I was willing to do to things. So it was almost easier for me being bivocational and having other people on staff full time, because time is just hard to navigate around. But yeah, I just kind of saw some glaring gaps in my leadership this year, and coming alongside staff and encouraging them, equipping them. I just things got busy. Like I said, there were a couple of hard things that happened this year, on top of losing my mom in a flood and some other things. Big staff transition. We had a lot of stuff happen this year that was just really, really different. And I just saw some real glaring gaps in my leadership when it comes to um, encouraging, equipping, and coming alongside staff.
And is that something that you feel you've got a grasp on now?
I have an understanding of it. I think knowing's half the battle. As we were guessing 80s cartoons the other day at a game we were playing, but I GI Joe and knowing's half the battle and all this stuff. I think that I'm aware I have a plan. And now, being so early in the year, it's just making sure that that is scheduled and executed. Personally, for me, I mean, I'm not asking anybody else to put things on their calendar to make my job go. I'm just there's some accountability and reflection I need to do in my life to make sure that I'm doing those things. So I do have a plan. I got a strategy. My boss is aware of those things, and so he's got some goals and things that we're working through, and that's part of it on a bigger picture.
I know that it's a little difficult because I'm asking you questions that are not in the privacy of a cabin in the woods, or even sitting in a living room or a church office or something like that. That I'm asking you questions that you're sharing your answers with the world that are being put out there. But can you think of a specific moment, a specific challenge, not some broad thing. Like,
Mhm.
can you think of a specific moment that you faced in the last year that you learned a lesson from that, a valuable lesson? We all learn lessons from everything, and sometimes they're not helpful lessons, but learned a valuable lesson from.
So, I love change. I'm talking like our living room is being rearranged for about 2 weeks now. And I think overall, for the most part, everybody understands the change, but like I will rearrange furniture and stuff just because it's Tuesday, and I love change. But I also love my people, and so when I'm in journey in that trenches with someone, I enjoy that. And it doesn't mean that when the staff changes, when the friend group changes in a season, that it's a bad thing. It's just I just like my people. I don't necessarily um I think I'm a friendly guy. I just don't necessarily make a lot of deep relationships really easily. Maybe it's I don't know. There's a million reasons, and that's not really the question here. We had a
Well, but
we
let's
had a
touch on that for just a minute, okay?
okay.
Let's take a break and touch on that. You've heard me say, I mean, so many times that our listeners are probably saying, "Oh, great, here he goes again." But I love the Clifton Strengths Finder.
Mhm.
We were talking earlier about temperament, personality assessments, and understanding ourselves better with those type of things. One of my favorite ones is the Clifton Strengths Finder, 34 signature themes that you take this assessment and it gives you your top 5. The whole premise of the Strengths Finder is that in life we tend to look at what we're bad at and try to fix those things, right? So in school, I did bad at math. And so my parents got me a tutor for math to try to make me better at something that I'm not naturally inclined to do. With the Strengths Finder, it really says, let's focus on how God wired you with the gifts and the talents and the strengths that he gave you and focus on those things and not focus on the things that you're bad at. Let's work on living in the areas that we're great at. Maybe we're good at, and let's make ourselves great at those things. And if we can get to a place, we're all going to have things that we don't like to do, that we don't enjoy doing, and we're not great at. It's part of life. But if you can get to where you're living your life 80 to 85% in the areas of your strengths, what a great place to live. And what you just described to me about how you are relationally is one of those 34 strengths called woo. And woo just simply stands for winning others over, that you love to make connections with people. Maybe those connections don't go super deep, but you love to make connections with people. And
Yeah.
those connections make all of those different people feel seen, feel valued, feel understood. And sometimes people who have woo tend to think of themselves as shallow. And we tend to look at our own strengths and view them as negatives. And that's what I love so much about coaching people in the Strengths Finder is let's identify what your strengths are. And then let's first get you to realize what a great strength that is. And so you just talked about how you don't have a lot of deep personal relationships, but you have a lot of, I don't even remember what you said, surface relationships. And you said it almost as if that is a negative, but yet that's a great strength because you have the rare ability to connect with a wide variety of people. Robert, anytime we go out anywhere, that even if it's to go look at Christmas lights with our family, or if it's go having coffee in a coffee shop to talk about life or talk about ministry or anything, anyone who walks in that door, you know them. It's hard to go to lunch with you because I can't have a conversation with you because you're having 3-minute conversations with every person who walks in the door because you have a connection, a relationship with every single person. And every person who comes and says, Robert, says it in a way like they think you're their best friend. That is an incredible strength to have. That's especially an incredible strength to have in the role that you play as the lead pastor of a church, because all of these people who come through the door really, really feel like Robert knows me, Robert cares about me, Robert values me, and I have a place here in a relationship with my pastor that is different from another church down the road that I might go to that they don't even know my name.
Yeah,
Celebrate
no,
that. Celebrate that as a strength. That is an incredible
yeah,
strength
no, I
that you have.
appreciate that. And there is a real genuineness in that for me. Like I don't look at man, I try not to, and I think I've done a pretty good job of this. It's something God's grown me in. I don't, especially at this age, and phase of life, I don't look at people as, um, just stepping stones or measuring sticks and things like that. I really do look at, that in relationship. I think when I say that, like from that deeper side, like it's just, like you're sitting around on a Tuesday afternoon and you're going, what are we going to do in 2 days? And hey, I had this opportunity pop up. Who's the person I call? Grey's Anatomy, I think kind of, I mean, I think this was around, but I think they probably really like cemented this thought in people, who's your person and things like that. And I think that's the part of it for me that is a little hard because it's a phase of life thing too, and we're seeing some changes. Like we've got 3 kids, that we've spent a lot of time in, just sports and going and doing, and so I mean at the end of the day I've loved every second of my boys playing sports and being out with those things, but the vast majority of the relationships you make in that space are pretty surface. There's not I mean you're thrown together because your kids want to sit on a common team, a common thing for a season or two, and it doesn't necessarily, you didn't all show up to a church or a community theater or to, Dodgers Anonymous group to all, get, therapy and help for being a crazy Dodgers fan.
Oh, I am
Um,
very proud of the fact there's nothing anonymous about that at all. 2024
yeah,
World Series champions, baby.
you get to that space where when you show up somewhere to bond and be with people because of a common vision goal thing, it's there. Life has felt a lot more in the space of like I'm the fix for a lot of people. It's that part of the journey, and just having those people that text, call, check in, and really want to live life with you, and it's not that they don't care. It's just that you're there because of your influence, not because of your friendship. And so, I think that's what I mean more in that space is, deep friendships for me kind of sit in a space of like something I don't have. It's a lot of, I feel really fortunate. To have had a lot of experiences. And a buddy of mine, church, we were working in church together, and he just, I think I've said this before. I don't say this very often, and I probably would only say it here, so I can't imagine I said it anywhere else. But um, he just came to me one day. I mean, we were doing like 5 services at the church we were at, and he just said, "I've never seen." I mean, he's been around a while. He's like, I just haven't seen. I can't remember anyone doing what you do. He said, "I've stood in earshot of you all morning, and I've heard you talk about like literally 10 different subjects, and you've made every person there feel like that what they do, what they care about, is the most important thing in the world, and you had intelligent conversation with them about those things. And I think that even before I understood the lingo and the dialogue, I've always had this innate thing of tell me your story. And I just want to hear your story. And if I hear enough of those stories, I start to understand. I'm able to have dialogue. I watch a lot of, content and media and things like that. So I learned some things and grew up with granddads who were farmers and uncles who were woodworkers or not woodworkers. Well, my granddads did woodwork, but um, one of my uncles is a logger, another one's a brick mason, another one's a business owner, another one was a mechanic, and a bunch of them raced cars. And my dad fished and raced go-karts and all this kind of stuff. And so I just had a chance to be around a lot of things, and gave me a chance to kind of have some kind conversations. And so, I think in that I have a lot of that, but it's just a lot to carve out time and space to kind of live life with 1 or 2 people at a pretty deep level that, like I said, as Grayson and I just said, kind of is your person that you're just able to be super deep with.
So you still haven't answered the question. What
Which one?
is a significant challenge that you faced in your ministry this year, and what did you learn from it?
And so in that, I had there's a couple of things inside of this, but I think that the one that I was talking about, which led to this, was oh um, so we had a staff position change, and like literally one of the reasons I'm at the church I'm at is because of the person that left. And they didn't leave out of being mad. They had a great opportunity. It just fit some needs in their life more. It gave them a chance to do some things that was just really where their heart and passion are. And I was not upset, but man, I love this person. And it didn't mean them leaving was bad. And the person that came in and replaced them is doing a great job. Um, but I couldn't let go. And and I spent the vast majority of what I think of 2024 wanting to hold on to the past, putting expectations, and this isn't fair to me. If Andy Stanley retired and North Point called me and said, "Hey, would you come in here?" and 20,000 people a week start holding me to Andy's standard, that's not fair. I mean, it's just like Jared Mayo just getting fired from the Patriots. I mean, well, of course he wasn't Bill Belichick. And he didn't have Tom Brady. And he didn't have Randy Moss. And he didn't have Teddy Bruschi. I mean, like, there's a whole lot of gaps in that conversation. But to fire a guy after 1 year because he didn't measure up to what a guy had done for 20 some with potentially the best quarterback to ever do it. That's an unfair thing. And so I put some unfair expectations on other people, but what I really found was it was a hard issue for me of not trusting that God was working in a season to make things better, and the changes that were happening were better for everyone. It wasn't just, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that you can miss. I'm not saying that doesn't mean or that I can't miss somebody, that I can't miss that relationship, that I can't miss all the cups of coffee, that I can't miss all the stupid text threads and conversations and things like that just aren't going to happen as much when you're outside of that immediate, connectedness. But it definitely was something that caused me, and ultimately, I think the church, um, a struggle for a real long season in 2024.
And looking back on that transition now, that leaving of the one staff person and all of the ramifications that came from that, are there any positives that you can see that have come from that?
Oh yeah. And I mean, and I don't know that I want to go crazy deep into a bunch of those, but,
It's just you and I here, Robert.
yeah. And somewhere between 750 and 2,000 people, depending upon the metric we read from the podcast. Um, I, um, yes, I think that, there's so many positives. I think that, and I think one of the things that I wrote down, in, um, I just want to read this is, and so I may have to come back to this in a minute, but this is really the answer for me, is that in a season of change, sometimes we need, a fresh breath to really kind of go. And I just, I needed I needed a fresh breath. I needed some things. I needed to stop relying on certain things to happen for me to execute and do and kind of step through some things. I needed to be able to, or not be able to, but I needed to take a little more responsibility in a couple of areas of ministry, not just go, that's somebody else's role. And so I'm going to let them handle that. And I did, and I would need to do that, but I wasn't doing as much coaching because of that person's level of execution or something like that. And these aren't even things that are the responsibility of the person that took like those responsibilities actually shifted to me when that person stepped away. But like, the thing for me is, it gave me it really was some significant areas that I saw of some gaps in my understanding of how ministry need to happen. This is the first time I've ever been a full-time like campus pastor, teaching pastor that's leading a church at level. I mean, and so there was definitely some gaps and some learning curves and experiences, and I saw some real glaring things that I've been able to. I said that's I mean, I've got 4 goals for the church, and then I've got 8 or 10 personal things I'm working on this year. I have 4 church goals this year, and I think 3 of them are directly related to the stuff we're talking about right now, of gaps that were there that I should have been managing better when it was previous setup, and I didn't manage it well. And that's on me, not on anybody else. And it didn't mean it was happening poorly. It just needed to happen better. And now we're at a place where, I that stuff had kind of become non-existent over the last year, and that's 100% on me. And now I'm stepping in and leading those movements and moments in our space.
In leadership and even in relationships, I would say in life, we have a few response mechanisms that kick in. The term that is used all the time is fight or flight. And when challenges kick in, your personality is one that you either dig in thinking you're right, or maybe even you're not right, but you dig in to address the situation, attack the situation, respond to the situation, and correct the situation regardless of the outcome, to correct the situation, whatever the outcome may be. Or you simply bury your head in the sand and try to move on as quickly as possible and act like the challenge, the conflict is not there. We tend to not take time, regardless of whether you're fight or flight. For most of us, the tendency is to move on from the conflict or the challenge as quickly as possible. Even if we're fight, we want to address it and then let's move on. Let's put it behind us. It hurts. It's no fun. It's stressful. It keeps us up at night. It raises our blood pressure. And so let's move past this as quickly as possible and get to something that's positive and something's good. But I think there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of growth that can take place in looking back at these challenging moments and saying, what lessons can I learn from those? Not in the moment. I don't know that it's always productive to try to reflect on those moments in the moment when they're happening. But
I
when
actually
some
think that's a
time,
really unique and special leader that can do that. I don't think the vast majority of us even have that skill set and ability
yeah, I would
to
agree.
be that.
Aware.
Yeah, and so and I think too. And I'm such a tell me what I'm doing wrong. If I'm doing it right, I don't require a ton of encouragement to keep moving forward. Um, you don't really have to say much to me. Keep writing my paycheck, and I'll get things done. If I'm doing something you don't like, or I'm doing something incorrect, or if you'd like to see something a little bit better, tell me and I'll fix it. But the vast majority of people will not do that. And so when I address things, it's probably this tone right here. I'm like, hey, we just need to do this. And people are going, wow, Robert's really mean. I'm like, no, I'm just giving you directly how we can succeed and how you can succeed. And if that's offensive, then I'll come back and, hey, how you doing? It's been such a good day. I brought you your favorite coffee. Now here's where you're sucking right now. Like, let's fix this and let's go. And so like, oh, and by the way, now here's a Danish. I mean, like positive. Here's the meat compliment, sandwich compliment, whatever, like the bread, and then the struggle in the middle. I mean, like I can do that, but I mean, it's easy to look and see other people's things. It's hard to look and see your own in real time. And I just think it takes an incredibly self-aware person to be able to see that and fix it in the immediate. I think most of us were a couple weeks out at best being able to do that, but I don't know that I'm that quick. I'm
Yeah, and
probably
I
a
don't know
couple
that
of
that's
months.
necessary. I really don't
Yeah,
know that it's necessary because the emotions, the feelings are so raw.
yeah.
And when things are raw, we tend to default to our pre-wired disposition towards conflict, that fight or flight, and not have the self-awareness to step away from the situation and reflect on what's actually happening away from how it directly impacts myself, right?
Yeah.
And but at the same time, when we get past it, most of the time when we're facing a challenge, we want to get past it, move past it as quickly as possible. And so we had a staffing change. I want to get the new person in and get moving as quickly as possible. I want to get them up to speed and get going as quickly as possible. And as soon as we can have, and I'm not saying this is your situation in any way, I'm just saying most of the time, as soon as we can move on and positively move ahead, then the situation is gone. And we hope that we never have to revisit that or think about it again, because it was painful. And rethinking about that challenge or that conflict elicits negative emotions and feelings within me. And so why would I want to go back and dwell on that and reflect on that? But yet there's incredible wins and gains that can be had when we process in hindsight the challenges and the conflicts that we've experienced that can deepen our faith and can definitely deepen our leadership.
No, I agree 100%. And I think that, our situation was super unique too. And I don't know that I've had any real experience. Like when I took over the role as campus pastor, the previous campus pastor taught 4 weeks ago at our church. He was there this past Sunday. Like his family comes every week. I mean, he's still a part. The worship pastor who was transitioning to another job, like the person that took over was somebody that had been on stage every week for the last for the 2.5 years, three years, whatever before that. And so like, and then the person who was stepping down stayed at the church. I mean, and so I think over time they've transitioned somewhere else now, but it's like it's not a I mean, anything. I mean, it was just weird. It was weird setups. Typically, when you leave an organization, you leave the organization. Um, there's a big difference in the previous CEO that was at the YB that I worked at, me as the CEO, and then the current CEO. Like, I still go in there and say hey to people and work out some and things like that. The CEO before me, he came in there almost daily, worked out, did stuff. I mean, he was still around. Honestly, the CFO had been the CEO before him. And she's still there every day. And she was 20 years ago. She was the CEO. And so when you've got people in an organization that have been there a long time, it's different. In a church where everything is just so leader centric, um, it's interesting. Personalities really drive some stuff. And because we communicate for a living, most CEO roles, you put a short video on social media or you write a letter that goes out once a year and people maybe bump into you. But the chances of people seeing you on a real regular basis and getting your ear in those moments are very small. In a church world, you finish preaching a sermon, a lot of pastors go stand in the back and shake hands. I mean, like you see it every week. There's a crew of 4 or 5 people that every week come stand in line to talk to me every Sunday. And so it's a very different space when you've got to kind of sit in that world.
So for our listeners out there, as we need to kind of wrap up this segment, this section really quickly of this, some things that I want to give you to work on your own if you have time. And we'll put these in our liner notes wherever you listen to the show on, is take some time with just a sheet of paper or on your computer and just kind of jot out what went well for you this year. What went well and why? Why did those things go well? Also want you to kind of go through the process that Robert just went through. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in 2024? And how did you grow from them? What lessons did you learn from them? What relationships, what moments or accomplishments are you most grateful for as you look back on the last year? I want to encourage you to create a timeline, to map out major events or milestones that occurred in 2024. And for some of you, we talked in our last episode that we had to put a lot of time into preparing for that episode when we looked back on our 2024 because it was a long year. And going back to things that I had thought happened maybe 2 years ago, we're actually back in February or March of 2024. A lot has happened this year. And so go back with your calendar maybe go back and look through your teaching calendar of where you were in January, February, March of 2024. Look at some of the things on your church calendar, your personal calendar, to see what's happened, what's taken place that maybe you forgot about, that have not been on your mind's eye for months, and map out some of the major events or milestones that have taken place over the last year. And then we always talk about being thankful and practicing gratitude. List things that you're thankful for. Just jot them down for things that you're thankful for and why. And then what I would ask you to
Something.
do.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go
No,
ahead.
if I can jump in on that one really quick, I'm terrible at this, and I'm going to try and do better in 2025. But for the last 2 or 3 years, my wife has a jar sitting at our house, and she has Post-it notes sitting beside it, and everyone is encouraged once a week at least to write something that they were grateful for that week, fold it up and stick it down in the jar. And then at the end of the year, we dump the jar out on the table and we sit around and we read all the things. And we sat the other day and we laughed a lot, like just reading through them. And it's really like two. Two of the five of us really do it well. The other three of us don't do it as well, and I'm one of those, and we need to grow in
Let's
that.
play the guess
But
the game of who does it really well.
oh, that well, Melissa for one, and so it's really just which do you know which boy does it, but and it might be the artsy kid, but we but that has been such a cool thing. And so even if you isn't something, maybe you don't have, maybe you're single and leading in the church and you don't have family that's a thing you could do it with, but it could be something really encouraging for you to get a little bucket or a hat you don't wear anymore or something like that and put some Post-it notes beside it and just in a prominent place in your house as you walk by, just write, fold it up, drop it in there. And at the end of the year, really, really do that. And because I know, like I said, for me, like the grateful things of being really grateful for the small things, it's hard to remember the small things. It's
It
sometimes
really
hard to
is.
remember the big things.
Yeah.
Like there's really big rocks that you put into your grateful jar that sometimes if you're not intentional about it, you'll get 6, 8 months out and go, what really happened over the last 8 months? And somebody goes, well, you did this. And you're going, oh my goodness, how did I forget? I was so grateful for that in the moment. And yeah, you sent some scripture and things as well. Some of that's like that psalm that you sent and some things. And I'm just always reminded of Moses and them putting out the rocks and Moses and Joseph encouraging people to put out the rocks and to really remember these moments and things. And so, what are the things you're setting up that help you remember the moments um, that you're navigating through? Sorry. So yeah. So the grateful thing. Then you had a couple other things you were going to add.
No, I actually think that was great what you said. And I was just listening to a book this past week, Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. And she talked about that you should every night before you go to bed, it should become a practice that every night as you're going to bed with your spouse, or if you're single, it can be a jar like that. But every night, list 3 things that you're grateful for in that day. That took place in that last day that you were awake from the moment you woke up. What are 3 things in that day that you were grateful for? And just that practice every day of doing that has a tremendous effect on our mental health. So in finishing the thought there for the practice that I would love for our listeners, if you have the time and the willingness to do, is after you have listed those things that you're thankful for, after you've created the timeline, after you've journaled the things of what went well this year, what were the biggest challenges and how did you grow from them, what relationships, moments, or accomplishments are you most grateful for in the last year, then I want you to look at those things and look for recurring themes in those reflections. Ask yourself the question, as I look at these things, I look at my last year timelined out, what do I want to leave behind and what do I want to take with me? What are the things from this last year that I want to be done with? And what are the things from this last year, some of the challenges, some of the moments, some of the lessons learned that I want to take with me into 2025? This has taken a lot longer than we thought that it would for this episode. And so this is going to have to be a 2-parter. And so, Robert, I think that we're going to cut this off right here and pick up next week with part 2 of our reflections on 2024. So we do want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Pulpit and Porch podcast. We hope that you have maybe gotten something out of this. I know this was a little bit different than any other episode that we've done before, and want to encourage you, wherever you're listening to this podcast, that you take some time to look in the liner notes, as we will list some of those things that we just talked about and some practical things that you can do on your own. Shouldn't take very long to reflect on the last year and maybe get a jump start on where you're heading into 2025. I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share the Pulpit and Porch podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Your sharing and subscribing to the show helps other people to find us and hopefully gain some valuable wisdom and insight to help them in their life and ministry journey. You can find us at higherministries.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Look for Higher Ministries or the Pulpit and Porch podcast. Again, tune in next week as we continue in part 2 of our conversation. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.